Amazing, single father rescued unconscious girl outside hospital, not knowing she's a millionaire. Jack stumbled out of the hospital's humid air, a pot in one hand and a wrench tucked under his arm. Rushing home felt like a relentless grind, a routine that pulled on him like wet clothes. But tonight, he'd promised Ellie they'd paint the sky together, the remnants of a sunset clinging to his tired spirit. He froze when he spotted a girl crumpled on the sidewalk, breaths erratic and shallow. Without thinking, instinctive adrenaline coursed through him as he rushed to her side, lifting her up with a strength that belied his exhaustion. Bravery surged. He had to keep her safe. Everything shifted when the door slammed open behind them and the medics stormed out. Jack looked down at her. This girl, her pale face almost ethereal, her life dependent on him, a mere mechanic from a small town. The flurry of panic faded, replaced by the weight of his own reality. He could fix engines, he understood rust and torque, but what if he couldn't fix the cracks in a girl's world where privilege built glass towers? Days turned into weeks, and as he learned Lily's name, her backstory unfurled like a nightmarish contrast to his own. Her life was filled with expectations, even as freedom beckoned from around the corner. Jack's heart sank at the chasm between them. His life was surrounded by grease and steel, while she wore luxury like armor. Each attempt to connect met with her confusion, her judgment slipping into painful silence. Jack's courage flickered. He felt like a fool trying to bridge a divide he couldn't understand. One evening, while Ellie and Jack lounged on the porch, he couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy that gnawed at his insides. They painted together, vibrant strokes on the canvas of a forgotten summer sky, color fading as it darkened. But the whispers from his friends, the looks shared, twisted in his gut. He wanted to shout that he was a good father, that love and art bridged their worlds. But what did he have to show for it? A grease-stained apron and calloused hands? Not much when comparing legacies. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Jack's resolve wavered, one soft afternoon changed everything. They were gathered in their backyard, paintbrushes in hand, when Lily discovered her own artistic gift blooming, and she encouraged Jack to do the same. He picked up a brush and painted, not with strokes, but with fragments of his own life, memories darkened and refined. A portrait of his struggles spilled from the canvas in front of them. But just when the sun shone brighter, shadows clouded the gathering. A mysterious photograph surfaced, tucked away in the folds of old family keepsakes, a little girl smiling, the same last name that Lily carried. Anxiety curled in his stomach. What does this mean? He thought, the world around him twisting into a terrifying unknown. With this one coincidence crashing into his stable life, Jack began to question everything. Who was he really? And what did destiny have in store for a hard-working father and a girl trapped in privilege? As uncertainty hung thick in the air, Jack felt the weight of his identity collapsing around him. The world felt massive, unyielding, as he braced to confront the truth that could change everything. The photograph lay on the table between them like a ticking bomb. The only sound in the quiet room, the distant clink of Ellie's toys as she played outside. Jack's heart raced as he examined the image, the child's beaming face radiating innocence and joy. But beneath the surface, a storm of questions churned in his mind. How was Lily connected to this little girl? His hands trembled, a stark contrast to the steady heartbeat of a man who fixed machines with precision. He turned to Lily, who sat cross-legged on the floor, her expression a curious blend of wonder and unease. Jack wondered if she too felt the weight of their realities shifting beneath their feet. "Lily, have you ever seen this girl before? Does she mean something to you?" Jack's voice, betraying the tremor of uncertainty, echoed in the space. Lily leaned closer, her brows furrowing, the flicker of recognition painted across her features. "She looks familiar, but I can't place her," she said, each word careful and deliberate. If Jack had driven a familiar road, he might have felt a fork in the road ahead, but where his gut told him to forge onward, doubt crept in like a sly shadow. Days passed as Jack oscillated between shock and determination. He kept the photograph in his apron pocket, feeling the weight of it press against his chest. The implications were staggering. How could a mechanic from a small town even begin to confront a world that thrived on privilege? Yet the more he pondered, the more his thoughts turned inward, questioning his own path. What had he truly achieved beyond the clamor of tools and the routine of fatherhood? During the long nights, Jack's focus sharpened. Engaging with Ellie on art began to feel more like a purposeful venture into self-discovery. Each brushstroke evolved into revelations about himself, unraveling emotions long buried beneath layers of responsibility. He thought of his own father, who had instilled the values of hard work without ever discussing dreams colored in hues brighter than grease. Jack realized that by investing in Ellie's creativity, he had inadvertently opened a door within himself. As he painted, deciphering the chaos of feelings onto a blank canvas, insight began to trickle in. A blend of colors reflected his fears, hopes, and insecurities. This was his outlet. Here lay his unpolished dreams waiting for acceptance. In sharing this process with Ellie, he found vulnerability that allowed the weight to lift momentarily. Yet as clarity came, the shadows coiled tighter. The question remained: what did he do with the knowledge he had gained? In the very core of him, the unyielding fear of insignificance gnawed. Could he bridge the gap between his humble life and the world of wealth Lily belonged to? Confronting the unknown wasn't merely about identity. It was about choosing whether to remain anchored to the past or sail into something terrifyingly new. That evening, a knock on the door jolted him from reverie. His pulse quickened. The messenger outside wore an air of authority. The man introduced himself as a family lawyer representing Lily's family, requesting a meeting. Conflicting emotions spiraled within Jack. Could this be the moment that would unravel all he fought against? As uncertainty gripped his very essence, he realized something vital. He no longer wanted to cower in the shadows of his life. Instead, a flame of resolve ignited within him. It was time to face whatever truths awaited him. Jack took a deep breath and opened the door wider, both to the lawyer and to a potential future shrouded in mystery. The moment had come to face the echoes of his past and the shadows of another's life. What would he discover about himself and the girl whose life intersected with his? A new chapter was unfolding, one that could redefine everything he thought he knew. Jack felt the lawyer's piercing gaze through the threshold, a tangible reminder of the crossroads he stood at. "I appreciate your time, Mr. Moreno," the lawyer spoke, his tone formal but not unkind. Jack stepped aside to let him in, sensing a tidal wave of impending revelations. With each passing moment, anticipation built, and the photograph weighed heavier in his pocket, as if containing the secrets of his life's next chapter. "Let's get started," the lawyer said, sitting down at the kitchen table, a space once filled with familial warmth now transformed into a chamber of uncertainty. Jack pulled out a chair but hesitated before sitting, his mind racing through potential scenarios, each more implausible than the last. This encounter could reshape not just Lily's life but his as well. "There are legal matters to discuss regarding Lily's situation," he began. "As you may know, she has been found," Jack interjected, the word choking him. "I know what happened, but what does that have to do with me?" The lawyer regarded Jack with a steady expression, one that suggested he was well prepared for an emotional encounter. "Lily's family wants to offer you something in return for your care during her time away." The implication hung in the air, thick and unsettling. Jack's breaths became shallow as he considered the possibilities. The photograph resurfaced in his mind, and he couldn't help but wonder about its connection to the lavish life that Lily seemingly belonged to. "Offer?" he echoed, trying to suppress the mix of dread and curiosity bubbling within him. "Yes, financial assistance, and perhaps more. They recognize the dedication you have shown to Lily, especially during an unimaginable ordeal." His voice softened. "It's not just about money." The room fell silent, time stretching like a rubber band about to snap. Jack leaned against the table, bracing himself as the implications crashed over him. Could he take something from a world he felt utterly estranged from? His instinct screamed to guard Ellie, to protect their simplicity from this potential disturbance. But another part of him, a flicker of ambition ignited from his artistic explorations, whispered that this could be a chance. "What's your angle here?" Jack asked, challenging the lawyer's calm demeanor. He needed clarity, and more than that, he craved agency in the face of the unknown. "My angle is straightforward, Mr. Moreno. Lily's well-being is paramount, and the family believes establishing a relationship with you can only benefit her moving forward." Each word rolled off the lawyer's tongue like a practiced script, yet Jack detected the undercurrents of a personal stake behind his professionalism. As the lawyer talked about potential collaborations and privacy agreements surrounding Lily, Jack felt a shield of emotional confusion and ambition clashing. Could he really embark on a relationship tinged with affluence and responsibility? Was it not the same kind of disruption that had haunted his upbringing? No, this was different. He was a father now, and he had Ellie's future to consider just as much as his own. Jack's heart pounded as he contemplated the implications embedded within the offer. This was not merely a decision regarding his financial security, but an impasse that could redefine their lives, transforming his sense of self-worth, shattering the limitations he'd imposed on himself, and challenging the very fabric of who he thought he was. "Let me think," Jack ventured, gripping the edge of the table, feeling the urge to run away, battling against the drive to push forward. He had to find a way to navigate this labyrinth of choices while staying true to his essence. Just then, the distant laughter of Ellie resonated through the house, a subtle reminder of what brought him joy amidst a myriad of uncertainties. It was more than enough motivation. "Let's reconvene tomorrow," Jack finally said, a newfound resolve settling in. "I need to sort through my thoughts." The lawyer nodded, acknowledging the gravity of the moment. As the lawyer took his leave, Jack felt complicit in a fragile dance with destiny. The potential before him glimmered like a mirage, a world far removed from grease-stained hands and predictable routines. But for every step he considered taking, doubt whispered in his ear. With a heavy heart and an uncertain mind, Jack closed the door behind him. The question consuming his thoughts was not simply about Lily's future, but rather about the man he needed to become in order to navigate it. What truths lay ahead, and at what price would he acquire them? As Jack turned back to the living room, Ellie's painting still sprawled across the table, vibrant and chaotic. He felt a pulse of creative life surging through him. It was time to reclaim his narrative. What path would he choose, the one he knew, or the one potentially paved with opportunities unimagined? The decision loomed before him like an unmade canvas, ready for the first stroke of courage. Jack stood at the threshold of the kitchen, the air thick with possibility and uncertainty, like the aftermath of a storm. Thoughts collided in his head, each vying for dominance. What would it mean for Ellie if he accepted help from Lily's family? A sweet taint of aspiration, mixed with the bitter taste of his principles, left him paralyzed, as if the very floorboards beneath him had turned to quicksand. He felt Ellie's joyful laughter echoing through the hallways, a sound that anchored him amidst the turmoil. The photo in his pocket felt like a secret burden, a small relic of a life intersecting with his in a way that evoked both curiosity and apprehension. As he sank into the living room's confines, its walls pressed in, tightening around him like a noose designed to capture his scattered thoughts. He knew he needed clarity. Jack retrieved a sketchbook from the coffee table, its cover creased and faded, bearing witness to countless evenings spent capturing dynamic lines filled with narration. As he flipped through the pages sketched with his dreams and fears, he instinctively grabbed a pencil, seeking the comfort of creative refuge. But the lines he envisioned felt disjointed. The strokes failed to convey what was now percolating within him. Each scribble made him acutely aware that these moments, this decision, could alter trajectories, not only for him, but for Ellie too. The weight of fatherhood settled in his chest. He needed to know who he was in this world. The man without dreams who scraped by for his daughter, or the artist capable of envisioning a new life filled with color. The stark contrast between the two identities taunted him. Could seizing the opportunity presented by Lily's family allow him to break free from his self-imposed limitations? Or would it tether him to a life he thought he had escaped? A flicker of inspiration ignited, and he began sketching a scene. An impression of a father and daughter, bold strokes merging vibrant hues to illustrate a world of possibility. But as he portrayed their smiling faces, layers of doubt began to seep in. An unforgiving reminder of the price that success demanded. He paused, pencil hovering above the page, and closed his eyes tightly. The laughter in the distance became a beacon, guiding him back to what truly mattered: purpose. Jack visualized a pathway evolving from this turmoil, not just for Lily or Ellie, but for himself. This could be about growth, the evolution of a man who could embrace support without losing his core. The sketch morphed into something new, a juxtaposition of two lives. Genuine connection was achievable. It wasn't a betrayal. The decision wasn't about money, but about developing a partnership that could provide a safeguard for Ellie, enhancing their life while simultaneously allowing Jack to rekindle his artistic aspirations. Could the path forward be sustainability rather than capitulation? Determined to avoid being swallowed by self-doubt, Jack stood, the sketch a testament to his resolve. He took a deep breath, steadied by the envisioning of a life unencumbered, filled with opportunities, where his past didn't have to dictate his future. Yet a wave of apprehension washed over him as he turned his thoughts back to his looming meeting with the lawyer. The stakes were high, the risks were real, and the ramifications could ripple through every facet of their lives. Tomorrow wouldn't just be a third meeting. It would be a confrontation with his fears, a defining moment. And as he prepared for what lay ahead, he felt the thrill, a rush of possibility colliding with trepidation. Jack clenched his jaw, ready to face the decisions that awaited him. The moment of truth arrived closer than he had anticipated, and he could almost hear the echo of his heart, resolute and urgent. Would he take the leap, or would he retreat into the safety of what he knew? He glanced once more at the sketch he had created, its lines now imbued with hope. The time had come to face who he truly was, or wished to become, amid the swirling chaos. Tomorrow would define his trajectory. Jack felt a conviction settle within him. The path ahead was unclear, yet compelling. Every choice now would become a brushstroke on the canvas of his destiny. Jack awoke with the dawn spilling through his window, soft light casting patterns on the walls. The sketch still lay on the table, a vivid reminder of the duality battling within him. He took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of resolve to shake off the residual doubts lingering from last night. Today was not merely another day, it was the day he could reshape his narrative. Preparing for the meeting felt like preparing for battle. He dressed with purpose, every button fastened, each item of clothing a layer of armor against the external pressures closing in. The crisp fabric of his shirt served as a tangible representation of the man he aspired to become, a man not defined by his status, but by his ambitions and aspirations. As he left the house, he glanced back, ensuring Ellie remained blissfully engrossed in her cartoons. Her vibrant laughter was a memory imprinted in his mind, reminding him that whatever decisions he would make today, they must revolve around her well-being. He climbed into his aging car, the engine sputtering to life. Like his own motivations, hesitant yet insistent. The drive to the lawyer's office pulsated with a strange synergy of excitement and dread. Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly while his thoughts raced uncontrollably. What if this meeting changed everything? Would he emerge reborn as an artist in control of his destiny, or as a defeated soul shackled to compromises he never intended to make? He arrived 15 minutes early, a luxury he seldom allowed himself. The building loomed ahead, sterile and imposing, a structure filled with heavy decisions and larger-than-life consequences. He stepped inside, greeted by a sterile waiting room where time seemed suspended, capturing the clamminess of anxiety in the air. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Each tick of the clock taunted him. Self-doubt clawed at the edges of his mind. He thought back to his sketch, the laughter, the possibility. This meeting could catapult him toward a future where he reclaimed his identity as an artist, not just a father scrapping by. When his name was finally called, Jack rose, legs shaking with both resolve and uncertainty. The lawyer's office was an expansive space, filled with bookshelves lined with legal tomes as if they were trophies of battles won. Jack took a seat at the polished wooden table, his pulse quickening as he met the lawyer's measured gaze. "Good morning, Jack. I know you have some pressing matters to discuss, so let's dive right in," the lawyer said, with a professional yet penetrating demeanor. As they delved into the details, Jack found himself grappling with a toolkit of emotions: trepidation, hope, and the persistent pulse of ambition. With each clause the lawyer detailed about his potential partnership with Lily's family, he felt an awakening within, an urge to reclaim control over facets of his life he had long relegated to others' whims. Then the lawyer paused, his gaze shifting to a stack of papers. "But there are some strings attached," he cautioned. "This isn't a simple handout, Jack. It comes with certain expectations, particularly regarding how it impacts your rights and responsibilities as Ellie's father." The weight of that statement pressed on him, almost suffocating. Expectations, compromises. Would this support come with costs he hadn't accounted for? Suddenly, Jack was back at that threshold in his kitchen, fear flooding through him. The vibrant strokes in his sketch seemed to blur. Nothing felt certain anymore. "No," he asserted, shaking his head firmly. "It shouldn't mean sacrificing my ability to be a father, to be an artist. I won't let that happen." The lawyer regarded him silently, and it was in those moments of unspoken tension that the truth began to crystallize. This was about more than mere survival. This was about redefining what success looked like for him, an emerging identity moving beyond mere existence. But as the lawyer continued detailing the contingencies, a sickening realization gripped him. What if accepting this help ultimately stripped him of his independence and creativity, driving a wedge between him and Ellie? The fear of failure loomed like a dark cloud over his aspirations. Determined to remain rooted, he steeled himself against the uncertainty. As the discussion shifted toward terms, a flicker of clarity ignited. He would not allow fear to dictate his choices, nor would he limit his art's potential. Yet, just as Jack prepared to voice his thoughts, a knock at the door broke the moment, an unexpected interruption that sent tremors through the room. What had been a precisely orchestrated meeting swayed under the weight of this unforeseen arrival. Jack's heart raced. What now? The future, once painted sheerly, threatened to fall into chaotic strokes. He couldn't help but question if the interruption was a distraction or a harbinger of change. As the door creaked open, the world shifted beneath him once more, and he braced for whatever news awaited him. Would it reaffirm his journey or reshape it anew? The door swung open, revealing a young woman, her face flushed, hurriedly entering the room. The air in the office shifted. Jack felt the tension ripple like a wave crashing against the shore. Her eyes darted between him and the lawyer, and in that moment all the carefully assembled intentions he held rattled within him. "I'm so sorry, she stammered, glancing at the papers strewn about on the table. "Is this a bad time?" Jack's mind was racing. Who was she? What did she want? He could see the lawyer's posture stiffen, the air thickening with sudden uncertainty. This was not just any interruption. It had the potential to pivot the discussion, to throw Jack off balance. He couldn't afford that, not today. "No, it's fine," the lawyer replied, his voice measured. "Look, I know this sounds strange," the woman continued, swallowing hard, "but I have to speak with you, Jack." The intensity in her gaze felt almost electrifying, as if she held some critical piece of information that could reshape his reality. Jack's heart pounded as he tried to assess the dynamics in the room. The lawyer's eyes flicked between them, likely sensing the shift in energy, and Jack knew he had to confront the unknown. "What is this about? Do you know me?" "I'm Lily's sister," she stated, urgency etched in her features. The revelation was jarring, the implications bursting like fragile balloons filled with hope and dread. The partnership he desperately sought with Lily's family was now a personal confrontation with the very people he was meant to ally with. "Lily?" Jack repeated, his mind racing as pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. "You mean the girl I've been—" "Yes," she interrupted, visibly agitated. "We need to talk about her and the family's plans. It's complicated, one I don't think they understand. I didn't know who else to turn to. You need to be aware of what might happen if you accept their offer." Confusion enveloped him like fog. All this pressure, the lawyers. Dry words, the weighty papers filled with terms, and now a family member stepping in with a stark warning. Jack's thoughts churned. Was this merely another complication designed to derail him, or did he have a genuine chance to understand something crucial about the people he would be entwined with? "Look, I can't just abandon this conversation," Jack argued, frustration twinged with urgency. "I'm here to secure a future for Ellie, to reclaim my life. I can't—" Lily's sister stepped closer, the earnestness in her eyes cutting through his resistance. "I'm not trying to derail anything. I'm here because your decision impacts more than you realize. I've seen how their help can be a trap. My family has always prioritized their image, their legacy, over genuine care." Her words struck a chord, resonating with Jack's previously unspoken fears. The constant struggles, the late nights, the feeling of losing control. Was this help simply another set of chains, shackling him to another family's expectations more rigid than his own? His pulse quickened, doubt bubbling to the surface, but the flicker of determination remained. "What do you propose?" he asked, calculating his next move, the artistry of his life hanging in a precarious balance. "If they see you as an opportunity, you have to be prepared to negotiate your identity, not just for your sake, but Ellie's as well," she replied urgently, her eyes softening with an understanding derived from shared experiences. "You can't trust everything they say." Inside, Jack felt the storm of possibilities colliding, the chance to reclaim his life, the risk of entrapment, the voices of family loyalties echoing far and wide. As he mulled over her words, a profound realization crystallized. His journey had never been about waiting for help. It was about carving his own path, more intricately connected to his art and fatherhood than he ever feared. But before Jack could respond fully, the lawyer cleared his throat, reminding them both of the ticking clock. "This situation is clearly evolving. Perhaps we should reschedule," he began. "No," Jack cut in, the resolve solidifying in his chest. "I won't reschedule. I'll decide my terms today." Lily's sister looked at him, a flicker of surprise in her expression, but it morphed into something like admiration. Jack could feel the ground beneath him stabilize, determination lighting a fire in his belly. As he faced the lawyer, ready to articulate the ownership he sought, the weight of the moment surged. The future he envisioned, not just for himself, but for Ellie as well, surged to the forefront of his mind. Yet, even as clarity began to emerge, he sensed a lingering shadow. What other revelations lay hidden in the tangle of family dynamics? As the tension in the air thickened, Jack felt an unsettling anticipation that propelled him forward, knowing that staying true to himself meant confronting things he may not be prepared for. The door had opened, but it felt more like an invitation to a battle he was beginning to understand. And, with every passing second, he wrestled with a haunting question. Would he emerge victorious or lose everything he was fighting for? Jack took a steadying breath, the weight of Lily's sister's words wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. The air crackled with a strange energy, as if the very atmosphere knew how pivotal this moment was. He could feel the lawyer's eyes boring into him, a silent reminder that time was eroding his chance to define his terms. "Let's be clear," he began, his voice steady but firm, each word an emblem of his determination. "I'm not entering into any agreement without knowing its full weight." The flicker of shock on the lawyer's face was reassuring. He was signaling that he was no longer a passive participant in this unfolding drama. Lily's sister's intensity surged, bringing a focus to Jack's scattered thoughts. "You're right. You have to start here. A negotiation rooted in the authenticity of your own needs and values, not simply what they want from you. You must set the stage for how your relationship with Lily's family will unfold. It has to be reciprocal." Jack nodded, absorbing her insights. Suddenly, the stakes rose alongside the complexity. His gaze flicked to the still looming piles of paperwork. They weren't just legal documents. They represented layers of history, expectation, and the competing visions of families steeped in their own ambitions. He had been so preoccupied with securing Ellie's future that he had forgotten to weigh the cost of that security. "Define your boundaries," Lily's sister continued. "Be mindful of their motivations. Ask tough questions. You need to protect Ellie, and that means understanding who you're really dealing with." Her words rang with experience, yet he couldn't help feeling the daunting challenge ahead. He wasn't accustomed to engaging with people wielding influence, standing toe-to-toe with families who had navigated wealth and power for generations. The thought of facing that world both thrilled and terrified him. "What about you?" Jack asked suddenly, his curiosity breaking through the tension. "What role do you play in all of this? How can I trust your counsel?" Her eyes held a mixture of vulnerability and resolve. "I'm releasing control of my family's narrative as much as I can. I want Lily to have agency in her life, even if I can't always protect her from their choices. I fear their plans are insincere. They want to leverage her for their gain." Jack shifted his weight, digesting the implications. Here was a chance to align with someone who understood the intricate dynamics of family loyalty and ambition. The unshakable resolve that had ignited within him solidified into a strategic confidence. "Then let's make it clear," he said, a cerebral clarity overtaking any lingering doubts. "I'm here for Ellie, and I'm not afraid to expose any manipulation. If they want to build a partnership, it has to be equitable and transparent." The lawyer cleared his throat again, a slightly frazzled look battling for dominance over his composure. "I suggest we pause to reflect on how we move forward. I can guide you through the next steps, make sure your interests are protected." An unexpected wave of aggression flared within Jack. "No more pauses," he declared, using the moment to take a small step forward. "It's time we put all cards on the table. Exactly what are their plans?" He watched the lawyer's face pale slightly. The sharp inhale from Lily's sister beside him acknowledged the implicit risks, the potential fallout from questioning such an established family. Yet Jack felt invigorated. Each word he uttered felt more like a sculptor chipping away at marble, uncovering the latent masterpiece beneath the surface. This was about redefining his own narrative, influencing the story, and not merely observing from the sidelines. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," he said deliberately, locking eyes with both the lawyer and Lily's sister. "If they want me to play ball, they better be ready to negotiate, not dictate." Jack savored the rush of empowerment that surged within him, aware that this was merely the beginning. The door had opened wider, revealing not just an opportunity, but a labyrinthine challenge. As the implications of his boldness settled in the room, Jack felt his heart race with anticipation. What would Lily's family reveal? Would they welcome his tenacity or escalate their games? With determination anchoring his resolve, Jack steeled himself. The real battle was on the horizon. He had to prepare. Little did he know, hidden dangers lurked behind that family veneer, threats he was yet to comprehend. And so the stakes escalated, spiraling into the unknown, a confrontation with his own fragility woven into the fabric of larger ambitions. Would he withstand the tumult, or would he unravel in the face of secrets yet to be uncovered? Jack's resolve solidified as he leaned back in his chair, contemplating everything that lay ahead. The stakes had never felt higher, and the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger than ever. He could sense the tension swirling around him, fueling both a deep anxiety and an exhilarating adrenaline rush. This was no longer just about protecting Ellie. It was about reclaiming his narrative in a world that wanted to define it for him. His missive to the lawyer and Lily's sister had been succinct yet powerful. He needed to stay firmly planted on solid ground while navigating, and he was ready to steer the ship. But inner caution tugged at him, nerves fluttering at the contemplation of the next steps. Confronting an influential family was a labyrinthine affair that could send him veering dangerously off course. In that moment, he recalled his own upbringing, a modest existence where decisiveness often felt like a daydream too far removed. He had spent so much time adjusting to the life that was dealt to him, but now, with newfound audacity, Jack was surging beyond self-imposed boundaries. He recognized that it was more than just an act of rebellion. It was a stake in his own future as a father. "Have you ever faced them?" he asked, breaking the contemplative silence. Lily's sister, caught off guard, turned her head toward him, her green eyes questioning. "No, and it terrifies me," she admitted slowly, but her gaze sharpened. "But if we're going to do this, if we're going to stand our ground, then we need every bit of fortitude we can muster." Jack's chest tightened at her admission. This was the crux of their partnership. Launching into this unknown together meant tying their fates. Both had seen the consequences of familial ambition, the manipulation that could come veiled in love, and the masks people wore to conceal their true desires. "Are we prepared for the fallout?" he pondered, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if they retaliate?" "Then we retaliate back," she countered, steely determination slicing through her vulnerability. "But we do it strategically, aiming for transparent communication. That starts us on the right foot and builds our alliance in trust. The moment we don't strive for that, we've already lost." The deepening bond of shared purpose ignited a flicker of hope within Jack. It was no longer just about defending Ellie. It was becoming a personal campaign for justice, ensuring they were not silenced. Driven by responsibility and renewed ambition, he began drafting strategies in his mind, mentally pinpointing potential scenarios. There were risks associated with declaring war on their dreams, but Jack relished the thought of being the architect of his own fate. He envisioned conversations that would illuminate hidden agendas, extract motivations, and unveil the true intent of each family member lurking in the edges of this negotiation. As he continued to strategize, he felt pieces of himself slowly clicking into place. He had always been a caretaker, yet learning to be a negotiator would require integrating vulnerability with fierce conviction. Facing Lily's family would be a litmus test for both his abilities and his integrity as a father. His heart racing, he turned to Lily's sister, flowing with newfound energy. "Let's take action. We create a timeline. Every question we have, every doubt, let's write it down. We'll be prepared for every eventuality." The intensity of Jack's words resonated in the room, eliciting a spark of enthusiasm from her. She nodded, each acknowledgement an assent that their journey toward unveiling their truths had officially begun. But as they meticulously plotted their course, Jack couldn't shake the lurking worry beneath his determination. What secrets truly lay in wait, buried within the tangled histories and desires of Lily's family? Would they uncover blind spots that threatened not just their safety, but the very future he was striving to carve out for Ellie? Jack's gut nodded with uncertainty. A confrontation loomed, and the clock was ticking. The real battle would demand everything he had, his every strategy, every ounce of resilience, and he had to be ready. With fierce determination, he stood on the precipice of change, knowing that this was not just a personal quest, it was the fulcrum of defining their collective legacy. Ahead of him lay the moment of truth, the confrontation that would ultimately lead to the unmasking of intentions, a clash that could herald either destruction or a cathartic release. As he steeled himself for what lay ahead, a chilling thought crept in. What if the truths revealed were more damaging than anticipated? What if the very foundations he built for Ellie were at stake? Jack could feel the intensity of the game intensified, and a crucial decision loomed just on the horizon. Had he the fortitude to face it? The time had come to confront the puppeteers pulling the strings. Would he emerge as a protector or an unwitting pawn in a game larger than he ever imagined? Jack sat at the kitchen table with a notebook strewn before him, each page filled with notes and strategies. The gravity of what lay ahead weighed heavily on his shoulders, but now he felt a burgeoning sense of clarity and purpose. Each line he penned was a testament to his determination to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. Preparing for their confrontation with Lily's family meant more than just outlining strategies. It required him to confront his own insecurity. He was a man who had often felt like an outsider, wrestling with self-doubt and lingering fears from his past. But now, those shadows no longer defined him. He was committed to stepping into the light and reclaiming his narrative, not just for himself, but for Ellie. He flipped through the pages, his eyes landing on a bullet point labeled Objectives. A slight smile crept onto his face as he realized these objectives were not merely about protection. They were rooted in empowerment. He wanted to ensure that Ellie understood her worth, that she could stand tall against adversity, just as he was preparing to do. "Okay," he muttered to himself. "First things first, align with Lily's sister." They had agreed that strengthening their partnership was essential. He needed her insight and support. Their shared anguish and determination would be their greatest assets. He picked up his phone, fingers hovering over the keys. The connectivity of technology felt both exhilarating and daunting. Would his call be perceived as an intrusion or an invitation for collaboration? As he contemplated this, he found himself reflecting on his previous life. He had been so hesitant to reach out, always worried about encroaching on someone's world. But now he resolved to push through that fear. With a deep breath, he dialed. As the phone rang, he couldn't help but feel the rising urgency of their situation. Each second brought him closer to potential confrontation and further away from the complacency he despised. "Hey, Jack." Her voice flowed into his ear, calm, yet laced with the same apprehension he felt. "I've been drafting our agenda for next week," he launched right into it. "I think we should outline talking points that are focused not just on defense, but on setting the tone for an alliance." Silence momentarily filled the space before she responded. "That sounds good. They like to control the narrative. If we can establish our authority right away?" Her voice trailed off as they both understood the significance of what he suggested. They spent the next hour dissecting the potential dynamics of their opponents. Jack felt himself engaged in a way he hadn't in years. He was no longer just reacting to the chaotic currents. He was actively shaping his destiny. His ideas about confrontation transitioned from abstract fears to tangible conversations, filled with assertive language and cautious optimism. "Do we need a mediator for this?" she asked, and it struck him how far they had come in such a short time. "To keep the conversation on track?" "Possibly," Jack replied, though there was a part of him that bristled at the suggestion. "But I want us to frame this. We should be in charge of our own narrative. We need to be clear and direct, even if it feels uncomfortable." As the conversation shifted to practicalities like location and timing, Jack felt the riptide of anxiety begin to dissipate. He was building a foundation for his future, not only for himself, but for Ellie, who deserved the right to define her own journey, free from the influence of those who regarded her as a pawn in their game. He hung up, feeling the weight of potential action galvanize him further. There was a different energy in the air, palpable and electrifying. However, an undercurrent of doubt stirred as he considered what faced them. Their adversaries were skilled manipulators, accustomed to getting what they wanted. As night fell and shadows danced across the walls, Jack's resolve deepened. He paced the room, contemplating the next steps, realizing that every move would be critical. The confrontation was not merely about defending Ellie. It was about confronting the very structures that sought to silence their voices. The time was approaching for him to fully embrace his new role. The stakes had never felt higher, yet something vital propelled him. A fierce commitment to integrity. He would not only be fighting for Ellie, he would be reclaiming his identity, asserting their family's right to exist unencumbered by the narratives of others. Just as he made peace with this challenging path, a new thought pierced through the haze of determination. What if confronting Lily's family led to unforeseen revelations? What if the truths that emerged changed everything he thought he knew about his past and the life he was fighting for now? Jack's heart began to race anew, and with a sense of urgency he prepared himself for the confrontation. Were they ready for the truths that lurked in the shadows of his own and Lily's history? The moment of revelation loomed ever closer, and for Jack, everything was at stake. Jack felt the air thrum with electric anticipation as the day of the meeting arrived. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, every detail spinning around the central truth. He was no longer a passive bystander in his life. Today, he was ready to reclaim not only his narrative, but also the future he envisioned for Ellie. He dressed deliberately, donning a clean shirt and a tie, not just fabric and threads, but a symbolic armor against the uncertainties that lay ahead. The striking contrast in his appearance mirrored the transformation within him. Gone was the man troubled by self-doubt. In his place stood a resolute figure, determined to confront the complexities of Lily's world while safeguarding the precious bond he had cultivated with Ellie. As he pulled up to the venue where they would meet Lily's family, the crisp autumn air enveloped him. Each step he took toward the entrance felt like a renewal of purpose, beckoning him to the precipice of change. In that moment, he realized that the confrontation was not merely a confrontation with the family, it was also about facing his own fears and insecurities. The waiting area was elegantly appointed, plush chairs and oversized portraits that told stories of opulence. But Jack felt only a rush of adrenaline, an awakening. He was not intimidated by the surroundings. He had been preparing for this, steeling his resolve. He spotted Lily's sister already seated, anticipation etched on her face. "Ready?" she asked, her voice steady, yet tinged with the same mixture of nerves and excitement he felt inside. More than ever, Jack affirmed, a determined fire sparking in his eyes. Let's do this. As they were ushered into the conference room, the world outside faded away, and the heart of the matter was laid bare before them. Lily's family members filled the sizable, imposing table, an ensemble that exuded power, but today would face the earnestness of their mission. "Thank you all for being here," a middle-aged man with a well-groomed beard began, seemingly the patriarch of the family. His tone was smooth, yet Jack could discern the underlying layers of authority in every word. Jack exchanged looks with Lily's sister, anchoring himself in the solemnity of their shared purpose. The meeting commenced, a dance of polite exchanges, punctuated by undertones of power dynamics that echoed with hidden agendas. Jack and Lily's sister remained vigilant, articulating their thoughts clearly, establishing boundaries without hesitation. "Lily needs support, not just financially, but emotionally as well," Jack declared, direct and unwavering. "We want this to be a partnership rooted in transparency and authentic care, not merely a contractual obligation." As the conversation unfolded, Jack felt liberated. Breakthrough after breakthrough occurred, and each articulate assertion he made chipped away at the family's facade, revealing the subtle dynamics at play. He recognized the groundswell of strength he had cultivated through his experiences as a father, a craftsman, and now a negotiator. The family members reacted differently. Some were intrigued, others visibly perturbed, yet Jack remained poised. There was no room for retreat. The narrative was shifting, and he wielded his voice like a brush, painting a future for Ellie and himself. "Your intentions matter," Jack pressed. "We want to create a narrative where Ellie feels she has autonomy and support from her family, not merely a financial safety net. We will not accept anything less." The room hung thick with tension, eyes darting across the table, calculations shifting behind polished exteriors. Yet for Jack, he felt an unyielding sense of clarity and purpose, as if the weight on his shoulders had transformed into wings. He had dismantled the uncertainty, piece by piece. With fortitude, he laid out what he wanted from this arrangement: collaboration, communication, and above all, respect. Lily's sister interjected when necessary, lending her voice to highlight the importance of being cautious with the complexities intertwined in their narratives. Jack felt a solid bond between them, their shared goal merging their trajectories into one potent force. As the conversation progressed, it became clear that Lily's family was not accustomed to challenges, and for Jack, this felt liberating. This meeting was a pivotal moment that tore down boundaries. It did not merely affect them, it had the potential to revolutionize how they connected with one another moving forward. At one point, one family member asked, "But what guarantees can you provide that you will act in Lily's best interest?" Jack met the question directly, an air of confidence enveloping him. "The only guarantee I can provide is that I will always prioritize what's best for Ellie. She is the heart of this entire conversation, and any arrangement we develop must align with her well-being and individuality." There was a moment of silence as every individual leaned into Jack's words, the intensity palpable. He had crossed a threshold into unfamiliar territory, a realm forged from nervous energy and newfound tenacity. He envisioned this partnership evolving, rooted in trust, not just transactions. As they wrapped up discussions and began to outline the next steps, Jack leaned back in his chair, feeling a surge of triumph and resolve. He had done more than simply negotiate. He had laid a solid foundation for the future. The idea of being an active participant had blossomed into a vivid reality. When the meeting concluded, Jack stepped outside with a mixture of exhilaration and relief. He had faced the giants of privilege and emerged not merely intact, but emboldened. They had established a framework infused with authenticity and respect, pushing against old paradigms. As he stepped into the brisk light of day, the world felt refreshingly new, a canvas waiting for vibrant strokes of possibility. He pulled his phone from his pocket to send a simple text to Ellie, knowing that their story was no longer confined and burdened by the weight of others' expectations. "I love you, Ellie. Let's paint the sky when you get home," he typed, his pulse racing with the excitement of shared adventure. In that instant, he realized his journey had taken a decisive turn. The shadow of doubt had faded, supplemented by an unwavering conviction, grounded in love. Jack stood proud, not just as a father, but as a man who had chosen to rewrite his destiny. He was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that he had achieved more than he had ever dreamed possible. This chapter closed not on conflict, but triumphant resolution, a heartfelt vow to continue shaping the future with his own hands, creating a life not only for Ellie, but for himself, a life of color, creativity, and authenticity. Now more than ever, he knew that every brushstroke mattered, that every voice deserved to be heard, and that they were all authors of their own stories. So, here's the deal. If you want to experience more incredible journeys of overcoming challenges, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this emotional conclusion with at least 5 friends who truly need to see it. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your engagement matters. And don't forget to comment with your thoughts and theories about this ending. I'm excited to hear from you.